Hey guys, hi there. So I have wanted to for a while now talk about the subject, Kundalini, Shakti, and Tummo all together for a while now, in order to make things a bit clearer as I experience them. It's a struggle, isn't it? Always a struggle to get things across in a way, because this whole thing, this whole field, this whole subject basically is still so unfamiliar to most of us. We are so engaged. I'm only engaged in this because I've had such a weird life, and I've had a really disjointed, dissociated life. My life has been broken off from my social connections that I should have had over and over and over again. And it's only in the recent couple of years that has become that my life has become stable enough for me to sort of chart it all out, to regain some form of control. And doing Shakti work is one of a few approaches that I've used in order for, I suppose, basically my whole point, my whole intention of, being involved with this the whole time is that I want an integrated life. I want as much as possible to be investigating what are the things that I can do. I want to work with the potential talents that I've got. I want to make a difference in the world, even to other people, if possible, and all those things. I've got all these ideals and dreams about things, and then it's in order for me to feel my best self, which is something a lot of people are looking for themselves, right? I have to sort of be in touch with a lot of the stuff that has been going on. Some of it is pure psychology, is pure, pain processing, trauma processing, and things like that are absolutely essential. Creative work is absolutely essential to me. Talking to people, talking to you guys is absolutely essential to me. So I I always feel very much out of sync with myself if I am not fit to vlog, for example. It's just one thing, but in a similar manner, having, what with my newer artistic endeavors these days, for past couple of weeks, I've been very productive drawing and painting. Actually, to me, that is a massive change, because this creative process and the way I go about that and the way that feels is, like a world that should have been part of my world always, and it wasn't. So I kind of suddenly broke through a layer of, old gritty resistance, and fell into this world again, this creative world. I will show you one or two of my pictures as I'm talking, because it's relevant. It all has to do with the Shakti work. For example, this one. Here you go. This is my last one that I did yesterday, and it has, like, it's supposed to be a sort of a muddy looking big heart over here with a little window in one end, and there's lots of little hearts down here, and all the red and orangey colors are basically to represent what the Tummo energy is doing. So I'm, going to go into this a bit more. I've got a big mug of tea, a second one, so I should last a bit, and I hope you can last as well, because I think, to me personally, all this stuff is very important, the way it feels is important. I've wanted to grow. I've wanted to feel alive since I was a kid. And it's been really difficult. And there have been phases where I have been resigned and depressed and basically immobilized and suffocated in all sorts of ways. So it looks like, what with my drawing adventures at the moment, I am really catching up on a lot of that. And it's I don't know if it's because I'm an ascendant Libra, but I tend to go like this for quite a while. Whenever there's a big change, I have to adjust to that. So there's that. And then there's me always, beyond and underneath that, always fighting for. Actually, with my drawing now, I've got back a part of me that I never had really, but that I've always wanted and dreamed of, and sort of hardly dared to imagine that it would be possible for me to go about this type of work so long. So there's that. There's all sorts of things that a person can need, right? There's, good conversation. There is enough fresh air and going out in nature. There's seeing a particular type of work developing and then being finished. All sorts of things like that. So too much to mention really. But for me, from where I come from, I had so little sense of myself really, that I tend to basically say always that I had to pull myself out of the swamp by my own hair. Or you might as well say I had to invent myself in a way that makes sense to me, right? So all that is actually basically psychology, psychotherapy, you're doing your own diagnosis and things like that. I'm going into this also because it turns out that the fact that I'm now so involved with my own creative vibrations in this type of work that I'm doing is a direct result of my Tummo practice. I've never heard anybody else mention that practicing Tummo actually did this for them. What you find online is Tibetan instruction as to how this is supposed to go, a lot of which will be fairly traditional and in the sense that it conforms to their culture. Quite a number of those people, I think, are actually really very knowledgeable. So they have the practice for many years, they have the knowledge and the practice. But in order for us in the West to hear what it is they're saying, to pick up on their knowledge, basically, that takes quite a lot of doing. So there's barriers there with actually people who are authentically in practicing Tummo in specifically, There's also quite a number of Westerners who are into a breathing technique that they call Tummo, which I think has basically very little to do with what it is that I am involved in. Maybe it isn't the same for them, and there's always the maybes, right? I don't want to discard all the maybes, certainly not. Personally, there are a few of those people. I'm not going to mention names or any of it, but I don't see it doesn't appeal to me how they go about it, because a lot of their approach is about sitting in ice cold water or sitting in the snow and battling the elements and that type of thing, which may be useful, but I do not see the psychological part. And because that psychological part is so important to myself, to me, I don't relate to those types of approaches. So my approach is As to Tummo, it has sort of happened because I picked up information basically from the Tibetan side of things and not from Western, philosophies or schools of thought. So all this is kind of, sort of to introduce the whole thing here. Basically, there is another sort of a strand of things that I've encountered that I've always found to be a bit problematic as well, is that there are numbers of people on forums. I've read about people's blogs, posts, and comments and things where they were afraid or very much worried about Kundalini energy. So I always felt like, okay, so it's your own energy. Why should you be afraid of this? Okay, so maybe it needs a special kind of management. Maybe you need to be sure what you're doing. Maybe you need to go careful, go one step at a time or whatever. And then there must be safe ways for us to engage with our own Kundalini energy and not blow our brains out, basically, or go crazy, or whatever it is that they're really. I don't think they're often really very specific about what it is they're afraid of. I have encountered, and this is a while ago, but I've seen it. It's, there's a website called Kundalini Crisis that has a lot of this type of stuff. I don't know how recent that is, really. A few years ago, it was still very much in business. I think it's tricky if you're going on about how it basically you're telling people that what they're doing or what they're experiencing, something they cannot stop ever, that is unsafe. It's like telling a person who's working on a high-rise building, in the 20th floor or in the 200th floor, whatever it is, wherever you are, and telling them that where they are is unsafe and not giving them a safety line. So I never found any proper safety lines anywhere as regarding Kundalini experiences. So that was my basic problem when I started off. When was that? And so up until 2018, really. I really had no clue as to how dangerous it really would be, what would happen. All I could do basically was sort of come into contact with my own, what I call my Shakti energy. And because I kind of apparently have a talent for that type of stuff, so I tentatively, at first, engaged with that energy from my root chakra up, and basically it turns out that I could direct it wherever I chose. But the Shakti does whatever I want it to do. If I don't say where it should go or what the plan is, it will just go the way of least resistance. And so if you open up your root chakra and you get this lava energy, this Kundalini energy in your body, then probably there are people who are actually in the position where that happens for them naturally at maybe all sorts of random times. And they don't know that what they're doing is they are being offered this energy because their root chakra is opening up. They don't know how to control that. They don't know that that is a thing that you should potentially figure out for yourself. Okay, so if I just tell them to cool it down there, still you have to take a position. You have to choose that theme of it being your choice, basically, is coming back throughout my whole Shakti energy work and Tummo tales all over the place all the time. It turns out that is basically it. So I myself was never in any danger during the past year and a bit that I've been engaged a couple of times a week, very consistently with Shakti energy, or with Kundalini, if you like. I don't call it Kundalini myself because I see the word Kundalini, the name Kundalini, has been used so much and so often that I think that people will then assume that I'm talking about something that has already its own properties. I'm being very vague here. Kundalini to me belongs in with those beautiful pictures of a sitting yogi figure with the chakras and the petals and the Sanskrit names and all that. It's fixed. It's a culture in a way. And because Shakti in India, I wouldn't get away with this, because Shakti is also part of the culture. But Shakti is a force. And in India, people know that Kundalini is part of Shakti, really. Because it's their language, it's their shop, it's their culture. It's always been theirs. And we're appropriating this stuff, because we're also human, and it turns out that we too have Shakti energy, whether you're from the Netherlands, from Alabama, or from Greenland, you have Shakti. But I feel more comfortable, and I've always felt more comfortable talking about the vibration or the field as Shakti, and the process or the techniques that I'm using as Shakti energy work. Up to a month ago or so, that was my shop, that was my business, that was what I was on about. And Kundalini I would tend to see as this, wavy kind of a structure, basically, or you can identify it with a snake or a serpent, and off you go into visualization land, and you're not checking in with the way it feels anymore in your body, in your own incarnation, okay? So hence my term Shakti. Enough about that. I'm gonna stop about that. I'm gonna have me a gloop of tea. So I have done my brand of Shakti energy work for over a year now. It turns out I can still do Shakti energy work in the same way as I have done it since early January 2019 it was. Only it goes much deeper, it is faster, and it's kind of overwhelming even. So yes, there's a possibility of overwhelm. And what I tend to do is, when it's been enough for a bit, I just go do something else. I read, I work on the computer, I go do cleaning jobs in the house, or I go with husband over to, talk to people, talk to clients or things like that, or whatever. If at all possible, I will just take my attention away from the thing and just let the energy simmer in the background. And so the last time I actually did a Shakti energy work exercise on this part of my throat and ears, and my the Alta Major chakra at the back here. I went into that for a bit, and it was quite extraordinary. There was a lot of stronger, there was more of an influence, there was more of a change in my vibration in there. So I felt afterwards, like, okay, so this is enough for now. Let me just pause here for a bit. And that's possible. I can just do that. And I can sort of intermittently do Tummo exercises. I will come to that in a minute. And the Shakti energy work is basically me going, first I make sure that my Shakti is available around my root area, my root chakra area. And then I go to wherever there's something problematic, and I try to pinpoint an area, like say for my lower back, for example, or up here, or what have you. I just go and sit there and I sort of point the Shakti energy at that. And you can feel it. You can feel it warming up in there. You can feel things expanding. Everything becomes larger. I remember the last time I did this, that I was actually inside both my ears at the same time. It's going to sound really freaky. And I could feel that because I was really focused and because the Shakti field, the Shakti force was really strong, coming from inside my ears, right? I could feel that to the outside, so out to here basically, in between, before I could come out of my ears basically. There was a whole area inside my ears that was quite numb, and it felt like I was deaf, whereas I'm not. I have really good hearing. So freaky, weird, strange. So I will continue coming back to that and doing this in this way, maybe once a month or so, depending. But I can control that. I can say, or I don't even have to say anything. I just go off and do something else because it's enough, you know? So it never runs away with me. And I've associated using the term Kundalini with not being in control yourself, with not being free to decide for yourself what's going to happen, to what extent, and when. Okay, so there's that. So the Tummo, basically the Shakti comes as it is, up through the root chakra into the body, and it can be directed wherever we want, wherever we think it's necessary, wherever there's a particular area that needs that type of vibration, or where there's a lack or a blockage of energy. That's the idea of Shakti energy work, period. Very simple. The whole Tummo thing turns out that, as far as I have investigated this now, what it looks like to me is that you invite the Shakti energy to make contact with your second chakra. And it may well be that there are compartments and subdivisions in our bellies that are a bit more sophisticated than the 1, 2, 3 to 7 dots or vortexes or that we are, given in the culture. I'm not so sure about that. I am not completely sure that where the Tummo resides is actually the same as the second chakra. It's closest to the second chakra, and it's below the navel. Trying to figure this out again. I don't think there's much of a difference. If there is a difference, the area where the Tummo happens is part of the second chakra. It's possible that the second chakra actually has more little compartments to it that have to do with fertility and the sex drive and creativity and all those things. That's possible. What happens is, if you invite the Shakti energy to come into that area, and you have to feel this for yourself, where it is exactly and what happens. Figure out what it is that happens for yourself, because you cannot stick a dollar coin in and boom, there it goes. It doesn't work like that. You have to still sit there with the Shakti energy at that point, in that area, and sort of be there and witness how it becomes a new field or a new fire. And as you sit there and are aware of this, the fire starts establishing itself in your underbelly. It becomes the Tummo space, as it were, and it fills you up inside you. That is Tummo. Tummo is this area around and above this established fire. So you might say that's the beginning of Tummo right there. Shakti is the raw material, and Tummo is the refined material, is the result coming out of this fire, of this, whatever name you want to give this. And what I've been concluding in my couple of weeks that I've been working with this is that I do not need to focus or concentrate or work on this type of meditation in any way as nearly as frequently as I used to do with Shakti energy work. The Tummo level of intensity, or the Tummo level of engagement, is permanent. That's the big difference. That's why I keep coming on about this and talking about this, because it's really fascinating to me. What has happened is that my Shakti energy has established itself in this little fireplace, in this area in my second chakra. And from there on out, it is like there is some definitive change has occurred, and I can feel the energy supply coming from there. It is like having a new foundation. There is definitely a sense of there being a foundation in there, because the Shakti, the function, I think, of the second chakra, or at least of that part of it, is to incorporate the Shakti energy and give it a final form that suits us, that conforms, or that we conform to, or that it conforms to us, whichever comes first, whichever is what is intended for your life, and it will be a give and take as you work along this process. I'm going to have a look at my notes here. I've said most of the things. The thing is that the Shakti energy is like the wild nature in us. The Tummo energy is more of a processed result. But it's a process that you haven't organized, that you haven't seen to its details or decided anything about. The belly chakra decides anyway. And it's like pushing a button, and then all of a sudden, all of this, the whole of the body enjoys the Tummo field immensely. You can tell that you feel warmer most of the time. It can also be quite tiring because it's a new vibration. You have to get used to it. It tends to feel really comfortable. It feels like everything is finally falling into its proper place. Whereas before, certainly I was always trying to sort of stay alive against all odds. You know the feeling, don't you? So for me, this is great. I don't have to do anything, which is perfect. I just have to let it be. And I can joke about this, but it has consequences. So coming from the next level, the next steps of this, there's of course all this very interesting past lives research stuff that is still on the list to be looked at. But it turns out that that's not the most important thing for me at the moment, or probably in the near future either. I need to do all sorts of little and larger bits of rehabilitation within myself, especially with the Tummo vibration coming into my heart as well. That feels amazing, but there are also bits that hurt, which is how life tends to be, right? When the good bits in life, always they also hurt a bit, at least a bit. So that's where the rehabilitation for me comes in. I need to be really straight with myself about my parents, about how I grew up, about the utter lack of supervision and care in a lot of ways that there was, about the level of misery that my mum was in, that her parents were in. It's my story. The way I go about this, it means thinking about everybody at one point or another. And so there's that. It's rehabilitating them is also redress for me, right? It's also finally getting a perspective that makes sense. I need to also have my own perspective, whether they like it or not. There's all that. And it takes time. These patterns, this looking for your own salvation, I suppose, basically. It takes a lot of long hours and long days where I'm not even aware that I'm actually working with my Tummo energy, but the Tummo basically pushes outside of my system everything that's become irrelevant to me. So hate is irrelevant. Anger and fear are irrelevant, but pain is not. And it takes, my next step is, more of that, basically. So I suppose I'm really blessed that I've got this drawing activity and that I can do so many things. I can show you a couple more maybe, because sometimes I really get to also, make an image of something that is of my past. This one, for example, is like an image for me of my life with my mum, which is an age and a half ago. The big rock, if you like of it, think of it as a rock, is my mother, and the little one is me in there. And then it's like a landscape with hills and things. It's also quite enclosed, and there's like this single vision, It's very much enclosed, the way it felt, the way that used to feel when I was still living with her, or when she was still alive, basically. She tried to protect me, and I guess I understand that a lot better now. This one's a bit harder to explain. I can't explain everything, This is basically just stripes and colors and dots and trying to work out different techniques and layers and stuff. And sorting out things. I don't know. They don't all have titles either. Here's another one that's quite easy to understand for me, because I used to draw those little houses always. I've drawn those houses forever. But this is the first time that I actually drew a person standing in the doorway there. I've never done that before. So that was cool. And one more. Here's another, what I consider to be a self-portrait with, a certain kind of an expression. This is a type of stuff that I never used to be able to do. Just splash it all on the paper and see what happens. This is a favorite of mine. A big pot with lots of happy colors and things, and lots of movement and fiery things going on. Lots of stuff. Great fun. And I suppose what I'm figuring out now is that I'm communicating with myself and with you then, of course, also through this. The rehabilitation is a part of the process towards the actual realization of your life, right? There's things that didn't used to work. There's things that you had to accept back then and you don't anymore. And it's best if you're aware of that. And for some people, it's a lengthy process, and for others, maybe it isn't. It's different for everybody. So I hope this makes some kind of sense. I would tend to think that the benefit from Tummo work, if you can get to it, is very obvious in that it takes you along. All of a sudden, the Tummo process, the story of Tummo as it unfolds in your life, it makes so many more things possible. It makes for so many more developments, and it has its own agenda, and you can trust it. Whereas Shakti energy work, I used to have to decide more myself. I used to have to say, okay, today we're going to do this. And it was great training, I think. So, but it's kind of disappointing somehow that actually you have to work on Shakti energy work for so long, or on Kundalini work, or whichever you want to call it, before you can actually get to Tummo and sort of let your natural inner person, your wild person, yes, maybe, let that take over. Let that decide what's next on the plan. You know, what it is that you want to do, what it is that means who do you listen to, and for what reason, and and some parts of it are tiring, and you just have to get used to this energy also, and just take time, and watch things on TV and forget about it, because once the process has started, it will do itself, I think. Which is another thing I haven't heard people say ever. So I will see where this takes me, and I think you will still be here quite some of the way, at least. I'm going to stop right here, and I hope it has had some point of clarifications in here. I still find it a bit difficult. I find it in the rehabilitation connection, in that sense, I find it sometimes more difficult to find words nowadays, because it's less from the brain. So I'm still hoping that some goodness comes out of it. Okay? Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.